What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be ranking the 2019 pay-per-views of WWE. However, 2019 was such a letdown. 2017 and 2018 weren't that much better, but it seemed that there were still some good moments and matches spread out throughout those years from start to finish. 2019 was like, hey, let's blow our load early. Without continuing to give hints on what was the number one pay-per-view of WWE for 2019 in my opinion, let's get into this list. There are 12 pay-per-views that I'm listing, with dishonorable mentions to the Saudi shows. Both would be at the bottom of the list if I went in depth on them, but let's not waste our energy. Number 12, Hell in a Cell. Sasha Banks vs Becky Lynch, probably the only good thing. Every other match besides the main event and Daniel Bryan and Reigns vs Rowan and Harper was not advertised. And of course, the worst ending to a pay-per-view in recent memory. They didn't pull the trigger on the Fiend character, and they ended a Hell in a Cell match via ref stoppage. What kind of bullshit is that? You got someone as hot as the Fiend, the first shot he gets, he better win the title. Might be the worst pay-per-view of all time. Nothing of significance really came out of this pay-per-view either, except for all the hate towards Rollins and them giving the belt to Bray about a month later. Number 11, Stomping Grounds. Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans were probably the only good parts of this show. Their match was alright. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn getting a win over the New Day was nice to see, but they didn't even follow up on it. Ricochet vs Samoa Joe was an alright match as well. Again, nothing to get hyped about. This saw Ricochet win the US title and made Rollins an even bigger ass on Twitter, going after Will Ospreay for absolutely no reason. Daniel Bryan in his hometown was wasted. He tagged up with Rowan but should have been in a bigger spot. Bayley vs Alexa continued their series of terrible matches from 2017. These two just don't have any chemistry with each other. A boring rematch from WrestleMania, Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. You can let Shane pin Roman, but you can't give Drew a win over him? Another reason Reigns will never be universally loved or even liked. Kofi Kingston vs Dolph Ziggler in a steel cage match was not great either. Dolph, as good a talent as he is, he's done. They have ruined him to no return, especially with the booking that's going on right now and what they did with him in the summer. Seth Rollins and Baron Corbin was not needed. With the talent they have, they chose to give Baron Corbin the summer push for the title. Made absolutely no sense. And again, Lacey Evans being the special referee and Becky Lynch coming out afterwards, probably the best parts of the show. Number 10, Money in the Bank. From last year being my favorite pay-per-view, in 2019 it is the third worst, or the 10th best depending on how you look at it. Both Money in the Bank ladder matches delivered, however the winners were less than ideal. Bayley's run with the SmackDown title has been downright awful, and Brock Lesnar's teasing to cash in made the eventual cash in feel less of a surprise. Kofi vs Kevin Owens was alright and Seth Rollins vs AJ was good as well. Both aren't anything that blew anyone away, especially the caliber of the talent in the ring. You would think both of these matches would be in contention for match of the year, but they were really forgettable. Ray vs Joe ended awkward, the Miz vs Shane feud continued for no reason and Miz never got his payback. Nice vs Daivari took up a spot for no reason on the main card. Everything with Becky Lynch was done poorly. Charlotte won the belt and lost it the same night to get her to 16 reigns as quick as possible. However, I do understand that they took the belt off of Becky so quick after WrestleMania because of the brand split. You can't have a person from Raw appearing on SmackDown, right? That makes no sense. Also, Roman Reigns vs Elias. I'll stop there. Number 9, Clash of Champions. AJ Styles was on the pre-show. What the fuck? Bayley as the champion, or on TV for that matter, please stop. The Revival versus the New Day again, and it's not even like they give us great matches like when the New Day and the Usos had a ton of rematches back in the day. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville for a whole bunch of nothing. Tag titles or not, I never want to see this tag team match ever. The hype for Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton was killed at SummerSlam, and the only thing that could really save it was a title switch, but they didn't even do that. Eric Rowan versus Roman Reigns, I mean, are they even trying to make Roman look exciting? The Shinsuke vs Miz match for the Intercontinental title was interesting to me, but that's only because I'm a Nakamura mark. Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch wrestled a good match, and while it ended via DQ, it set us up for a better payoff down the line. The actual pay-per-view started off with Bobby Roode or Robert Roode pinning Seth Rollins to win the tag titles with Dolph Ziggler. Great push for Roode, at least for that period. Rollins and Braun had a decent match for the main event as well, and after Rollins got the win, the Fiend appeared and attacked Seth, setting up their match at Hell in a Cell. We didn't know it was going to be the worst Hell in a Cell match ever, so at the time, fans were filled with hope. Number 8, Extreme Rules. Shinsuke Nakamura and Finn Balor on the pre-show? Double what the fuck. The Usos versus the Rival wasn't anything exciting. Bayley defending her title in a handicap match. I don't know if that was supposed to be an extreme stipulation, but come on now. Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley can leave my TV screen, please, and thank you. The New Day retained their titles, whatever. Kofi Kingston took on Samoa Joe, but nobody thought that Joe would win the WWE title, so this match was dead on arrival. The New Day and Kofi lost so much steam over the summer because of poor booking and how they weren't made to feel serious. The one thing that killed my enjoyment for Kofi's title run was seeing him stuff pancakes inside the WWE title. Gimmick or not, fake or not, that should not be done to the title, the championship that has that long lineage of past winners. Kevin Owens defeated Dolph Ziggler quicker than Goldberg killed Owens back in 2017. AJ Styles and Ricochet had an alright match, but again, another match that on paper looks like a 5-star match but ends up not living up to the hype. Aleister Black versus Cesaro was an underhyped match, and therefore this exceeded expectations for me. The Undertaker and a Ghost, I have no idea who he teamed up with, took on Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon. Taker wanted to erase that memory of his match with Goldberg from everyone's mind, and he came out and showed out this night. A great showing from Taker pushes this pay-per-view a little higher on the list. And finally, Corbin and Lacey taking on Seth and Becky in an Extreme Rules match for all the top gold on Raw was better than expected. Some decent spots made it to be a good all-around match. Brock cashing in was alright because a cash-in is always exciting, even though they ruined it with all the teasing and spoiling it earlier in the night. Number 7. Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. TLC. Seeing as this pay-per-view was the most recent, maybe that's why I have it so high. It's ranked 7, so I guess we can say this was the bar for all the pay-per-views to follow. Any better and it was a good pay-per-view, any worse and it was terrible. It wasn't filled with a ton of meaningless matches like we've seen WWE give us. Revival and New Day opened up the card with a good ladder match, and while it was a rematch, at least they added a stipulation. Viking Raiders and OC ending in a double countout left her a bad taste in her mouth. Pause. Same with Corbin beating Roman with the help of everyone and their mother. Aleister Black vs Buddy Murphy was a gem on this card. While it wasn't a classic by any means, the build was simple and it led to a good match. Bobby Lashley vs Rusev hopefully was the end to that feud. The TLC Women's Tag Title match was derailed because Kairi Sane got injured during the match. Luckily they kept the belts on Asuka and Kairi, and fuck Charlotte. See how many people have a problem with that statement. DM me, please. But anyways, what I think should have finished the show even if everything went well in the women's tag match, Bray versus The Miz. Now, Miz should have been disheveled coming into this match, but the match was what it was. Nothing terrible, but the aftermath is what carries it. Bray Wyatt, about to turn into the Fiend, gets interrupted by the returning, bald Daniel Bryan. He started off the decade with this look, so why not end it? As of now, they haven't fucked anything up too bad in this feud, and with Daniel Bryan standing tall over Bray, this gives this pay-per-view ranked number 7 on this list. Number 6. SummerSlam. The main card for SummerSlam was not filled with a million nonsensical matches this year, but even for it being a Big 4 pay-per-view, I'll place it in the number 6 spot for best pay-per-views of this year. I think the show had more good than bad, so I'll say sure, top 6 instead of bottom 7. Hope you understand what I mean. So a couple of matches that were alright, but yet again not delivering to the level that we would hope. Those were AJ vs Ricochet for the US title, Bayley vs Ember for the women's title on SmackDown, Shane McMahon vs Kevin Owens, and Kofi Kingston vs Randy Orton. Exception of the Bayley match, all those matches had okay to great builds, but failed to deliver a lights out match. Bayley vs Ember Moon just never really excited anyone to see it. Goldberg vs Dolph Ziggler was just to help Goldberg redeem himself for fucking up his match against The Undertaker. Why not give Dolph some false finishes here? Oh, I know, because the less Goldberg does, the better. Charlotte and Trish Stratus was good for those who like nostalgia. The build wasn't what you usually see for a legend returning, but it was what it was. Nothing awful. Becky Lynch and Natalya, with the help of the Canadian crowd, took this match and made it good. Anywhere else, this match probably dies a slow death, but the Canadian audience was invested and made the women look great. Seth Rollins and Brock was decent. We didn't need to see it again, however, but it got the belt back on TV, so we'll take it. Edge delivering his spear on the pre-show gives the pay-per-view some more brownie points too. And the best part of the show to me, the debut of The Fiend. Before they fucked up in October, the entrance, the music, the mannerisms, the opponent, everything lined up for this to succeed. They kept the match at good length, and because of that, it was a great moment. Number 5. Fastlane. Now, while SummerSlam has a big feel to it, and even with the good moments, the matches under-delivered. Fastlane, however, actually has some decent matches. Becky got her spot at WrestleMania. The match against Charlotte and the outcome was pure garbage, but we were still putting up with it to get Becky winning the main event of WrestleMania. Asuka vs Mandy should have never happened for the title. The Bar vs Kofi stretched out the Kofi Kingston storyline. Not a memorable match, but it built up support for Kofi. Nia Jax and Tamina competing for the tag titles was unnecessary, and it set up Beth Phoenix and Natalya teaming up. Nobody wanted that. We all wanted Lita and Trish versus Sasha and Bayley. The Usos versus Shane and Miz was a good match. Ended with Shane turning on the Miz, which set up their match at Mania. It gave us a heel Shane McMahon, and at the time, it felt new and fresh. The Revival were in a three-way tag match, which was nice. Ricochet and Aleister Black coming up from NXT showed everyone what they were made of. Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio versus R-Truth versus Andrade was another fine match. They had this match on the SmackDown before or 2 weeks before the pay-per-view, but it was still entertaining. Samoa Joe was put in a good spot for once, getting a championship win on pay-per-view. Daniel Bryan defended his WWE Championship in a triple threat against Kevin Owens and Mustafa Ali. While I'm not a Mustafa Ali fan, without him I don't think I would remember this match at all. KO and Daniel Bryan can deliver a good match, but adding Ali throws it in the high spots and risk-taking moves we probably wouldn't see from the other two. And it also continued the Kofi support by screwing him out of another title match by giving a shot to KO and Ali over him. Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre are super boring together. The only reason I give it a pass is for anyone and everyone that are suckers for the Shield. In my eyes, the Shield turned the WWE into what we know today. They only push Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. But for those fans, I'll say this was another good moment for the pay-per-view. Number 4. WrestleMania 36. Based on my scientific formula to rank these pay-per-views, WrestleMania wasn't the best pay-per-view this year on my channel. I ranked 2017 and 2018 pay-per-views. Check them out on my channel. I might leave links to them in the description or something. But anyways, the pre-show was one of the worst pre-shows I've ever seen. None of those matches even should have taken place if we are all being honest. It would save a bunch of time and energy. The main show starts off with Seth Rollins beating Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. Seth wasn't a Twitter troll yet, and most fans were still behind him to get the title off Lesnar and bring it back to TV. Great start to the show. Styles vs Orton on paper was looking real good, but something about it just didn't click. I'm not saying it was bad, but it wasn't great either. Shane vs The Miz in a false count anywhere situation delivered. Great spots and good finish made this a fun match. The Usos retaining their belts in a random 4-way match was not needed on this card. Give us the Hardys versus the Usos like we asked, and who knows, the card would be just a little bit better. But this 4-way and the women's 4-way tag for the titles could have been both left off the show. Possibly the match of the night and by far the best moment was the WWE Championship match. Kofi Kingston doing the unthinkable and winning the title from Daniel Bryan. The only bad thing about it was that nothing could really follow this feeling. And there was still 6 matches left on the night, including 3 that were going to be bad no matter what. Finn as the Demon versus Bobby Lashley, Roman Reigns versus McIntyre, and Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle. Those 3 matches dragged the card down super far. Samoa Joe vs Ray Elise was quick and made Joe look good once again like at Fastlane, but this time at WrestleMania against a legend like Rey Mysterio. Triple H vs Batista was only bad because you don't want to admit that you were once a Batista fan. I'm not afraid to admit it, so I enjoyed this match for what it was. The build up to the match was all over the place, but the payoff was fine. John Cena coming out as a doctor of thugonomics was another great moment, and I think it's safe to say Elias has been ruined. You can add him to a list of guys we got behind, but WWE decided that making money was too much of an inconvenience for them. Becky Lynch finishes off what was a disappointing 3-way match. Charlotte Flair was at it, which nobody, even Ric Flair, didn't want to see. Only thing that saved it is the fact that we got the payoff after a screwed up pinfall. By the way, that referee is the same ref that stopped the cell match between Rollins and The Fiend, and he also counted out the Viking Raiders and the OC at the Tables, Ladders, and Chairs pay-per-view to a chorus of boos. They seem to give him the finishes that will garner a negative response. Oh well, we gotta take out our anger at somebody, don't we? So yeah, the night ends off with Becky 2 belts, and because of how long the show was and all the filler matches, WrestleMania 36 ends up as my 4th ranked pay-per-view of 2019. Number 3, Elimination Chamber. This pay-per-view was like an inside-out Oreo. The start and ends were good, but the middle was the worst. Except for maybe one thing. Becky Lynch coming out and destroying both Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. Besides that, you had Corbin versus Braun for no reason, and Finn Balor versus Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush, instead of waiting for WrestleMania to crown Balor as the Intercontinental Champion there. Instead, they wasted it on this card. Ruby Riott went up against Rousey, but it was basically just to set up the aftermath like I mentioned earlier. The opening Elimination Chamber Women's Tag Team match was decent, better than usual. Like I said before, I've yet to see a multi-women's match have minimal to no botches, and for a 12-woman chamber match, they still had a bunch of missed spots. But the high spots were great, and the bad spots were kind of forgotten. It also helps that the clear-cut favorites walked out with the win. Sasha and Bayley walked out as the first ever women's tag team champions. Good start to the main card on the show. The Usos beat Shane and The Miz, continuing the storyline for Shane and The Miz. The match was fun to watch, and because the turn didn't happen here, there was another element to this where fans were waiting for a turn, and because we didn't get it, it was actually a good thing. The pay-per-view finished with the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Samoa Joe, Randy Orton, Kofi Kingston, and Daniel Bryan. Probably the most stacked chamber match in terms of star power. Previous years, you have had that random nobody, like Corbin, Elias, R-Truth, Santino, Snitsky, or Mike Knox type wrestlers. Anyways, this match was all about the end. As good as the other four guys were, Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston had a banger of a match as the final two. The crowd was behind Kofi, and with all the near falls, this was an awesome match. Daniel Bryan retained, but it added fuel to the Kofi Mania movement. Number 2. Survivor Series. NXT was a part of this show. Need I say any more? I mean, just like Evolution from 2018, I don't know if Triple H or someone else had some say instead of just Vince, but this show delivered. Ziggler and Rude winning a Battle Royal? Why not? The Cruiserweight and Tag match on the pre-show were good as well. Don't hate me for this, but again, a multi-women's match was underwhelming. Too many missed spots. While I didn't like this match, looking at how far they've actually come from a traditional elimination match in 2016, the overall match was better this year. The entire NXT team, Sasha Banks and Asuka, were the standouts, and they give me faith that one day a multi-women's match will be great. The triple threat mid-card match between Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, and Roderick Strong was given some good time, and it delivered. The Men's Survivor Series match had its faults just like in previous years, mainly the new talent getting taken out early. The NXT UK champion Walter and Ali, who was the hometown guy, both of them were the most over. They went out quick. If you wanted to end off with a one-on-one match, I think Ciampa and Rollins should have been the last two, with Rollins going over. You're going to tell me that Keith Lee and Roman Reigns is who you are making to look good out of all the talent that was in that match. Randy Orton is a bigger star to help make a guy feel special, not Roman. I don't care what you say. When they have a 50th Raw reunion and Roman and Rollins and Kevin Owens and AJ Styles appear, they aren't going to have that same aura that Austin, Taker, Foley, or even Orton have. But that's a different topic for another day. This is my second best pay-per-view of the year, and I'm making it sound like the worst thing ever. The three-way women's match, speaking of the worst thing ever, was boring. What have I been saying this whole video? Bayley is not a good superstar? She has shown time and time again that she does not have it to be in the WWE. Add to that, Shayna Baszler, who wrestles a ground and pound style, also doesn't have any charisma, but because she's with NXT, you would think that that would be enough to save this match, and along with the hottest thing in the women's division ever, Becky Lynch. But nope, their styles do not mesh well with each other, and add to that, Shayna getting the win but Becky stands tall to end the show. That leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth. But I don't think that was enough to take over the rest of the card, which propelled this pay-per-view to number 2 on my list. Brock vs. Rey Mysterio continued the streak of Lesnar in having great matches at Survivor Series. For a split second, you thought Rey was winning the belt with the help of his son Dominic. As long as this match had that moment of doubt for Brock losing, it's all that was needed to make that match worth watching. Daniel Bryan taking on The Fiend was another amazing back and forth. No way was Bray losing the title so quick after winning it, but a couple of times you got behind the possibility of Daniel Bryan pulling it off. Again, that's worth the price of admission in my books. And a match that made me an Adam Cole mark. If nothing else he'd done before made me one. This was, I believe, his 5th match in 7 days, including a ladder match and a War Games match the night before. He took on Pete Dunne to defend his NXT Championship, and even with a slow start, they built up and stole the show. Adam Cole retaining with an amazing sequence makes this pay-per-view stand out even more in 2019. Number 1, Royal Rumble. Number 1 in your hearts and number 1 pay-per-view for 2019, the main card for the Rumble was maybe the best start to finish pay-per-view ever. I'd even say top 5 of all time. Starting with Asuka vs. Becky Lynch for 17 minutes was outstanding. Looks like they're finally going to pay off that loss for Becky in 2020. Even if it wasn't their intention, long-term storytelling is always good. Shane and The Miz winning the tag titles, setting up a long-term feud, was cool. Might have carried on too long, but at the time, I'll take it. Ronda Rousey versus Sasha Banks in a classic? I don't know, maybe. Ronda versus anyone in a one-on-one match can turn into a classic, especially with someone that has the talent of Sasha Banks. The Women's Royal Rumble continued the night. I appreciated that there weren't any legends to help the match. They used NXT talent to fill the missing spots, and it worked. Shirai, Kairi Sane, Candice LeRae, and Rhea Ripley being some standouts. Becky Lynch coming out to a great response to take the spot of Lana. She also got some payback on Nia Jax from November of 2018. Nia Jax got eliminated by Becky Lynch, and throwing some doubt at the end with Charlotte and Becky as the final two, but luckily they did it and had Becky Lynch win the Rumble. Again, they fucked up and added Charlotte for no reason, but on this night, everything was great. Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles was put in a death spot after such a high moment for the crowd. It didn't help that they wrestled a 20+ minute old school style match. In another spot or another card, this would have been great. But after Becky winning the Rumble, you have to do something amazing or nobody will care. However, Brock Lesnar defending his Universal title against Finn Balor was the complete opposite. This was a quick paced match with a ton of awesome spots. While the fan favorite Finn Balor lost, Brock Lesnar came to work this night, and if we have nothing else for him, it's respect when he has these performances against smaller guys. He makes them look great, and it was a fun match to get us to the main event Rumble match. Elias and Jeff Jarrett starting off was a good moment. Kurt Angle, Shinsuke Nakamura, Johnny freaking Wrestling, and Seth freaking Rollins coming out started off the Rumble right. Pete Dunne, Aleister Black, Drew McIntyre, and Andrade got great moments and spots in that match as well. Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio, and Randy Orton added some old school star power to the match. Nia Jax getting RKO'd was the best thing I've seen. If women are gonna hit men, why can't men do wrestling moves to women? I stand for equality. Came down to Strowman and Rollins. Again, they made us worry by having Braun at the end, because you never know with this company now. Just when you think you have your winner, they give you the complete opposite. But the winner, Seth Rollins, who was again not a company kiss ass and hadn't yet trashed the fans for whatever reason, he was over with the majority of fans and now was looking to go to Mania and finally take the Universal Championship back from Brock Lesnar. Besides one kind of boring match on the main card, the Rumble went off without a hitch in my eyes, making it the best pay-per-view of 2019. Let me know what you think was the worst pay-per-view of 2019 and what was the best. Give me some topics you'd like to see ranked as well in the world of professional wrestling. And as we wind down the year and the decade, maybe some matches, moments, superstars, anything like that. But if not, I'll be back when I get another idea for a video. Peace out. Talk to you again in 2020.